Well guys, we have done it. We have reached 1,000 subscribers, and as a little treat, we are doing a special video today. We are finally going to fly one of the rivers from its source all the way down to the coast and talk about the ecology as we go along. My name is Will, I'm an ecologist by training, and this is an Ecologist Plays. Let's play some games. We are back here in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and as I've said, we are going to fly one of the rivers from its source all the way down to the coast. And we are going to do the Nomads River. So we're right here in the northern part of the clouded forest. We are going to then move down through the upper plains and go all the way down to the delta here in the Kinglor forest. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. So we are currently here as far north as we can possibly go. This region is the headwaters of the river, the start of the river. At this point in time, the river is very narrow, fast flowing, lots of rapids, and in this case also lots of waterfalls. And we can't go any further north, unfortunately, well, not for now at least, but we are going to, from here, just head down and start moving along. Now at this point in time, as I said, fast flowing water, and it's also very shaded, steep valley sides, so to the right and to the left we should have quite a bit of rocky terrain. The substrate in the river here also consists generally of boulders, and in areas where there is a bit slower flowing water we do also have larger rocks and a few gravelly patches as well. We're just going to, as we fly along, hopefully going to just avoid the Thanators that we also have. We've got some feral Thanators that are attacking a few creatures over there. We are just moving into this section. It's very strange that we actually have a region like this where there's a shallow environment, a little pan or lake that has formed here. We do also have a pack of feral viper wolves right over there, but in this area we actually have a number of little streams merging together, and the terrain here is surprisingly flat. And because it is so flat, water isn't channeled as it is along the river there. Instead, water is spread out over a larger area, and because we have the same volume of water spread out over a larger area, this pan that has basically formed here is very shallow. The water is also very slow moving. It is not flowing rapidly, and because of that we also have a lot of plants growing in this area. There's a lot of plants within the water, next to the water, and on the banks here as well. We are still in the clouded forest, so we've got lots of these big trees here, basically like redwood trees in North America, and we've got them growing on here as well. We also have a lot of fungi. The clouded forest is famous for its fungi, and within this habitat we also have these amazing creatures. And this past Friday I also chatted a bit about them, the Bone Helm Rhinos. Really amazing. Here we again have one adult bull over there, two females, so we've got two cows over there, and then their two offspring as well, the young ones in this herd. And they're mostly staying together for safety. They've got extremely thick armor on their head and also along their back. Only real vulnerable spot is right behind the head where they have their neck there. We also have a mare deer that is actually grazing here right there with the Bone Helm Rhinos. Obviously here for safety we're just going to see whether we can get a little bit closer without unfortunately it is running away, the mare deer there. So also known as the woodpecker deer. There is another one coming along over there. I think there are some viper wolves in the area, so they may want to, yeah, there's a Thanator. The mare deer over there, of course, running away from the Thanator. The Bone Helm Rhinos immediately charging it. So you see, that's why the mare deer, which is more vulnerable, hello, yeah, please stop guys, leave me alone. So the Bone Helm Rhinos here also a little bit aggressive towards me now, but I am on my Ikran, so I'm hopefully going to be safe. I'm just going to keep an eye on them. But the Thanator over there coming for the... Oh, come on, keep an eye on the real danger there. The feral Thanator also attacking the Bone Helm Rhinos. The Bone Helm Rhinos putting up a formidable defense there, facing the predator with their impenetrable shield-like armor on their head. They are trying to intimidate that feral Thanator to get it to go away. And, well, it seems to almost be working. There's also now, unfortunately, a whole pack of feral viper wolves coming closer. You can see them approaching over there, their little red dots there. Ooh, that was a nice hit. Well done, Rhino. And here we have one of the major advantages of being in a group. You are able to defend not only yourself, but everyone else around you. Oh, no, don't turn your back on them. You turn your back on them, then you are a little bit more vulnerable. If you face them with your amazing armor, then you actually stand a chance. That was the bull. Unfortunately, the bull has now passed. The feral Thanator has removed him because he did not stand his ground with his amazing bony armor on the head facing the predator. Unfortunately, the ferals are a major problem here in Pandora. Due to the activities of the RDA, they have actually been let loose and they are all over the show. Unlike normal Thanators, they do not hunt just for feeding, they hunt for sport. And they are having a major impact on the local populations as they do so. But here, away from the feral Thanators, we have two more mere deer. This lovely area here, this shallow pan, is providing animals like the mere deer and the Bone Helm Rhino with some food. Lots and lots of plants to graze on. And we have higher concentrations of them in this area than anywhere else in the clouded forest. But here we are now going out of that weary swamp area, of that shallow pan. We are going into the Nomads River. And we are going to now again have some faster flowing water. In this case, we are almost in the middle reaches of the river, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but not quite. We are still in the headwaters because, as you'll see here, the water is still very fast flowing. Lots of rapids. You can see here, nice little waterfall as we go. Steep sides, and usually very shaded. Usually not an area with a lot of sunlight that is actually baking down on the water. The water here is relatively constant in temperature. It's relatively cold as well, because for the majority of the time of day, there is not a lot of sunlight baking down on it. You can see here we've got again a nice little arch over here. The water surface here is shaded from the sun by the trees growing along here, by the steep rock faces. So as a result, very cool, this water. Low temperature, fast flowing, but because it is fast flowing and because we usually have a lot of boulders in here, in most of the areas at least, there is a lot of oxygen in the water as well. I'm just going to turn around and actually head along the river to this side, I believe. There should be a little narrow outflow over here. Now, usually rivers don't do this. Rivers don't split. Rivers merge, though. What have we got? We've got some mere deer, a whole family of mere deer running here as well. Usually rivers don't split though, they do tend to merge together, following the path of least resistance, which usually results in a lot of smaller streams merging together to form larger rivers. But this is now the area where the Nomads River is forming. We have got a Thanator den to the right hand side in this section over there, so that is a very dangerous area to go to, but this area where we are by the river is actually surprisingly safe. Now of course that Thanator would occasionally come down to drink, but for now it is most likely in its den area. May have some cubs on that side, we are not sure. Lots of amazing rock formations here, but again remember the rock faces here, as you can see, shielding this area from the sun, shading it out. So not a lot of sun actually baking down on the river here. Now it is dusk, so we are going to rest briefly just so that it becomes dawn again, and there is actually a little camp, little Navi camp right up ahead. So we're just going to stop there and take a little bit of a breather. The clouded forest, a lot of fungi growing here. You can see here some massive ones. The frill stem trees there, old tree trunks covered by massive fungi growing along it, and there seems to be a lot of decay. Decay is good. Decay results in nutrient recycling. Now we're just going to pop over to the Navi camp here, and here we go, welcoming Hearth, the one Navi camp here. So we're just going to catch our breath and then carry on. Alrighty, and it is morning. Unfortunately, it seems there is quite a bit of heavy rain at the moment, so we don't have the best of visibility, but that's alright. We are flying by the river. Now normally if you have something like this heavy rain occurring, this river may actually be in flood. But it seems that the water level actually isn't that much higher now than it is normally. We are just going to drop down the waterfall here. Always fun to do that. And you can see here again a lot of boulders in the area, lots of big rocks because the water is flowing very rapidly. We also have some echo stalkers right over there. There's a whole group of them. Lovely little family. Some of my favorite animals that we have here in the clouded forest. They are in essence blind, making use of echolocation to find their food. Now bats, of course, which they are based on to some extent with the echolocation, they are actually not blind. They have got very good eyesight, but echolocation is an extra sense that they use. The echo stalker, however, is completely blind. They rely entirely on echolocation to find their food, occurring in these family groups with adults and then also some of the sub-adults this year and last year's young living in a pack together. Of course, as the young ones they get older and they actually become adults, they most likely go and establish their own little packs. So quite a cool creature to also see. But again, here we have got a shallower environment because this is again a flat environment. The water flow slows down. There are a few streams flowing into this area, and then as a result the water becomes a little bit more stagnant. I would have expected a bit more plant growth in this section here, but it seems that it is possibly too shaded for most of the plants to actually grow here. So there's not a lot of plant growth in this section. We are going to see a lot more plant growth in the middle reaches and the lower reaches in the river. We do also have, it seems, an Ikran breeding colony up ahead. So there are a whole bunch of Ikran up there. They most likely are breeding on the cliffs to our left hand side here. We're just dipping down along the river here. Now normally you shouldn't really be flying in the heavy rain, but the Ikran here, they've got a very, very leathery skin, so they don't worry too much. They're not bothered too much by the rain that is falling. The water just kind of drips off their wings as we fly. But as we are making our way, we're almost actually out of the clouded forest. But it is called the clouded forest because it is almost always foggy or clouded. And that's because of the high moisture content in this area and the humid air moving into the clouded forest here. We have got a lovely, lovely mist rolling in. And because of the mist, because of the fog, a lot of it condenses on these trees and actually then drips down onto the ground, where it then basically waters the trees here. And as a result, you can have this lovely clouded forest growing here. We do have these cloud pine trees growing in this area as well. They are found in certain areas of the clouded forest, where instead of just having a single trunk, it seems to actually sprout little side branches and then grow their big trunks up. Of course, also like the redwoods, can get extremely tall, and you can find quite a few nice resources along their bases. Of course, we can't climb up there. No way that we are agile enough to climb up there, but they really are just an awe-inspiring sight. Now, we do have quite a few fish also present along the river here. In this shallow area here, you will have some species that prefer the calmer waters. But as we're heading into the faster flowing water, they very often will have to be specially adapted for survival in those areas. Ooh, it seems we've got some mere deer that just ran away, and we may have some more echo stalkers up ahead. Let's just go slightly higher so that we don't disturb them. But yeah, indeed, there is another family of echo stalkers. Again, 3 of them together, along with the Bone Helm Rhino over here. They're not too happy about me being here. It seems the echo stalkers, they are running off again. But the Bone Helm Rhino intimidating or trying to intimidate me by facing me and then also giving them wow intimidation call to try and get us to go away. It doesn't seem to be too bothered by me now because it is walking away, but it is quite reasonable to assume that the Bone Helm Rhino would be predated upon by storm gliders and possibly also Ikran when they are young. Not when the Ikran are young, when the Bone Helm Rhino are young. They most likely would be predated upon by things like the Ikran, which is somewhere along the cliffs there. We've got some RDA. We're not going to be bothered with them now. We are just flying along doing our ecology thing. And hopefully they will also leave us alone today. As I was mentioning, the river here, you'll have certain fish surviving in the slower flowing areas, and as we are heading into the rapids here again, you'll have certain fish surviving in the rapids and in the faster flowing waters. And very often what you'll have are very streamlined bodies with certain flattened head. They will have suckers that they can attach onto the rocks, and they can actually maintain their position within the river. They won't be washed downstream. Now, a lot of fish may actually migrate from lower lying areas, so from the upper plains all the way up to these shallow pools in the clouded forest in order to actually spawn. And certain things like rapids and waterfalls may actually be challenging. So what they will have to do is they will need to be specially adapted to actually jump from one pool into another over here. Very similar to salmon. You would have the migrations of the fish as they head from the lower lying areas up to these lovely little shallow pools to spawn. Now, it's not spawning season at the moment, so we don't have any fish making those journeys, but a lot of fish will have very muscular bodies and be able to make these jumps. And it's quite reasonable to assume that, like bears waiting for fish in these rapids, at these little falls here, you would have certain predators waiting for the fish to actually migrate up so that they can actually feed on them. The fish, very, very rich in nutrients, very good for the animals to actually feed on, especially if they have cubs of their own. But notice here in the faster flowing areas, boulders instead of gravel as the substrate. And that is because when water moves, the faster it moves, the larger the particles that it can actually carry downstream. So in slow flowing water, like we've got over here, you'll have a lot more of the finer material, the gravel and the sand, remaining behind, not actually being carried downstream. But as we head into the faster flowing water here again, you'll have a lot of these finer sediments, the sand and the gravel, actually being eroded away, and only the boulders remaining. So if you just have a look at the substrate in a river, you should be able to tell how fast the water is actually moving. And here, we have some rapids here. We've got the larger boulders left behind. We don't actually have any finer sediments, finer gravel in this section over there. Of course, the fast flowing water here, as it is tumbling over the rocks here, it's very turbulent, we call it, and there's a lot of dissolved oxygen coming into the water over here. So this water here, very, very rich in oxygen. It is actually also very, very clear because there are not a lot of sediments in there yet. There's not a high sediment load. It's not turbid yet. And that's because here in the headwaters, where we are with the narrow streams with the steep sides, we haven't had a lot of time for sediments to erode into the river. So there hasn't been a lot of catchment around the river here that could actually yield sediments eroding away and ending up in the river here. So the water in the headwaters, very clear, fast flowing, oxygen rich, but nutrient poor. There's not a lot of nutrients in here yet because of there not being a lot of sediments washing in from the surrounding soil. So there's not been a lot of time for nutrients also to leach into the river here. And here we go, we should now be heading into the upper plains. So we're just going to have one big tumble, a massive drop down from the clouded forest into the upper plains, and suddenly we have a change in biome, and that is brought on by the change in altitude. Now, instead of being in the high-lying area where there's actually a lot of fog rolling in, we now have the vast open plains of the upper plains ahead. And this area where we currently are used to be a forest. You can see the remains of the petrified trees all on our left and our right hand side here. We're also starting with a few predators that are hunting some prey. We have got a pack of Cloaked Panthers down below. We also have a few flutter flowers that are fluttering around right over there. They are actually very well camouflaged if they are remaining still in their trees. They resemble flowers. But we've got our pack of Cloaked Panthers here, and in this area, this seems to be the breeding area. And you can hear the call there of the Cloaked Panther, very high-pitched whistle almost. But here we have, on the right-hand side, right over there, we have got an adult male, and we also seem to have an adult female right over there, and then their two offspring. So very similar to how we had with the Bone Helm Rhino, where the family sticks together. That has also happened here, where there's an adult male and female, and in this case they're two cubs that are now adolescents. They are still learning to hunt. They're still accompanying the adults as they are hunting, in this case, the bladeheads, which are now running away from these Cloaked Panthers, which are, they kind of have given up the chase, it seems. The young ones are possibly still chasing them, but the young ones are learning to hunt. Hello, are you guys coming for me now? Let's just go slightly higher. Then you can all leave me alone, eh? And once these young ones are comfortable enough and they're able to fend for themselves and able to hunt, able to obtain their own food, they will then disperse into the other areas of the upper plains. So if you travel around the upper plains, you very often find adolescent ones all over the place. Those are the ones that have left their family groups, and they are possibly going to end up establishing their own packs. Oh, I love seeing them. Now here, as we are heading into the upper plains, the topography is not as steep. The water isn't as fast flowing. Yes, we are still going to have some waterfalls. Yes, we are still going to have some rapids, but the river widens. There are more streams that have merged together to form this stream over here. And we are currently here in the Nomads River, and we're going to have the Carvers River merging. And at the confluence here, it is going to become wider. there's going to be a larger volume of water moving in the river here. But here, as it is flattened here, and there's a dire horse running there as well. Oh, love seeing them in here. And there's another one on the left-hand side there. Dire horses, of course, well adapted for life on the open plains here. They are very fast. They've got horizontal pupils that allow them to spot predators. Really an awesome... And speaking of predators, there's another pack of Cloaked Panthers up ahead as well. But as I was saying, as we are now in the upper plains, the topography becomes a little bit flatter. The river flattens out as well. There's a larger volume of water here now. There aren't as many steep cliffs to the side of the river. And as a result now, more sun is baking down on the river. And we can have a warmer water temperature. Because we also now have more rivers flowing in here together, we've got a higher sediment load, the water will become a little bit more turbid, there are more nutrients here. Because we've got more nutrients and because we've got more sunlight, you can have, in shallow areas, in slow flowing areas, you can have some phytoplankton blooming, you can have a few other smaller little crustaceans surviving there. And because we have that, we can also have a few birds that are feeding on those little crustaceans and so in this area. Now we do have a few coronas flying around here. They are probably feeding on insects that have hatched in this water. So the larvae of those insects would have lived aquatic lives, and then at some point they pupate and they become adults. They become airborne adults. And that's what these coronas over here, these little pinkish bird-like creatures, are feeding on. And very often here where we've got waterfalls, you'll find the coronas. And that's because there's a lot of food for them. We also have on the left-hand side also something I talked about in the previous video on last Friday, the Soundblast Colossus. They will be feeding on the riverside vegetation over here. They are something not to be trifled with. If we actually fly too close to this one here, this is an adult, it is going to be aggressive and it's going to inflate certain pouches along its body and then blast air out as a defense mechanism. And it will be able to actually blast us off our Ikran. So we're not going to trifle with it. You can see here there are lots and lots of these little paths that lead down from the upper plains, from the petrified forest over there, down to the river, as over the eons the animals have actually been drinking water from this specific pool. They love coming down here, but also most likely, as that Soundblast Colossus and the young one that has actually departed already, as they also have done, they would have been feeding on the riverside vegetation here and getting quite a bit of food. And there we actually have a young one and an adult again, following this path, more or less at least. You know, that one is being a typical teenager, not doing exactly as it's supposed to. That one, they're coming down, they're coming to drink, and they're going to come and feed a bit as well. I love seeing these animals doing their thing here in the upper plains and the clouded forest and the Kinglor forest that we'll see in a moment. But here we are, again we have got cliffs, and again we have some Ikran that are most likely breeding and nesting and just roosting up in these cliffs as well. We've got a very strong breeze coming up here. The wind in the upper plains, it's quite strong, and it is currently being funneled through this, what we call in South Africa, a kloof. This valley, it is being channeled up there. So we're just going to stay close to the water where the breeze isn't going to be as strong. Now in these faster flowing areas, we can also have some shells, some clams. You can see one right on the rock over here. You'll find quite a few filter feeders along the river over here, normally submerged in the water. It seems the river is lower than usual and it has exposed these weeping night shells. They have been exposed, so now is actually a good time to come and harvest them. Now they will be feeding on anything in the water, in little or small organisms. They will be feeding on that, filtering it out of the water and surviving as they do so. And again here we have got a few waterfalls, really beautiful area. We are still currently in what we call the middle reaches of the river. We're not in the headwaters anymore. There's a lot more water flowing here. The water is also flowing a little bit more slowly as topography has changed. But here, as we are flying with these amazing floating rocks here, we have got the Weeping Steps to our right hand side back there. Now these rocks here are very rich in unobtainium, that amazing metal in the Avatar universe, and it is what we call a superconductor. And as a result of it being a superconductor, in areas of the moon of Pandora, where we've got areas with stronger gravitational pull, these rocks will actually float above the ground. So these rocks are very rich in unobtainium, and that is why they are floating. We do have another waterfall over there, as the rock-strewn river is also joining And as a result, now there's more water flowing in this river. And again, we've got some Cloaked Panthers. In this case, though, we do have 3 young ones, actually. So these are adolescents that have left their family pack. They are now trying to fend for themselves, and they are trying to hunt some bladeheads there. Unfortunately, they weren't very successful. They have given up the chase. Predators do have to decide whether it is worth their energy trying to catch the prey. And in this case, they have spent a lot of energy trying to catch the bladeheads there, but they weren't successful, so they have, for now at least, given up the hunt. But continuing downstream here, again a nice little waterfall. Oh, I love all these waterfalls here. And we are again in a steeper valleyed area. Now, because we've got these 2 cliff faces over here, notice all the moss growing there. This is a nice wet area, especially because of the waterfall over there, where there now is a lot of water spray ending up on the rocks here, providing a nice bunch of water for mosses and ferns and stuff like that to grow over here. But because this is a very shaded environment, there aren't a lot of plants growing here. We do have things like the shaded waterweed. There's one growing over here, there's another one over here. But they are some of the few plants that can actually grow in the shaded environment over here. In the sunnier areas, there will be many more species of plants that can actually grow there. But here in this heavily shaded area, only really shaded waterweed able to survive in the water column. But here we go again, just dipping down mossy banks all the way. And rivers like this would really be an amazing ecological corridor. A lot of animals will be moving up and down through the upper plains along the river, because they don't have to worry about finding water, finding food. Using this, very often it's also a little bit of the easier path, except of course in areas where you've got waterfalls, animals will have to travel around there. But in areas where there aren't steep rock faces, traveling along a river is easier, very often, than trying to find a way through the upper plains. A lot of animals, rivers are really very useful as corridors. Very often also, especially if you're looking at arid regions, there would be more vegetation cover along the rivers. So nice sources of food, or in some cases trees actually, for birds to nest in and things like that. Here, however, we don't really have a lot of trees growing here. This is the upper plains still. This is a grassland environment. There are lots and lots of fires, most likely spreading through the upper plains. Every time there's a thunderstorm, there's a chance of fire occurring. And as a result, very few trees are actually able to survive in the upper plains. We have got the wind-bent trees, and we do have some crimson trees, but they're only growing in certain areas. And the wind-bent trees are only really few and far between. I mean, there is one up ahead there, there's another one there, and then we do have some crimson trees up ahead. And oh, we've got a whole pack of Cloaked Panthers over there, and they have been terrorizing the Soundblast Colossus. The Soundblast Colossus, in trying to intimidate, there's an adult and a young one. Of course, the young one would be at greater risk of being caught by the Cloaked Panthers. However, it has got an adult with it. And together, there we go, they are trying to intimidate the predators to go away. The predators, if they are smart, will not be taking on the Soundblast Colossus here. Okay, well, maybe they're not smart. They think that, well, we've got the numbers. But they are attacking the Soundblast Colossus here. And they are realizing that, okay, maybe we are outmatched. Yeah. It seems the Soundblast Colossus have managed to actually scare the predators away. Oh, that's quite... Oh, it's actually fatally injured, the one. You see, that is the danger of taking on something like the Soundblast Colossus. There is one of the young ones, unfortunately, did not make it. It was actually one of the adults. This glowing bit there, that was an adult one that was still accompanying its young ones. They decided, well, maybe we can actually take on the Soundblast Colossi here. And again, they've come back. Why did they come back? They didn't learn the lesson. You see, the mortality rates for individuals actually leaving the pack, leaving the family, it's very high. If you're looking at lions, for example, with their males being pushed out of the prides as they reach maturity, they have to fend for themselves. They're no longer able to depend on the pride. And they've got to catch their own food. A lot of them make very fatal mistakes, like this one unfortunately also did. And as a result, you know, they paid the price. They took on something that they really shouldn't have been taking on. and as a result they died due to injuries that they sustained during the hunt. So unfortunately, very high mortality rates. That is to be expected. And the Soundblast Colossi here, they carry on to live another day. There is the Soundblast Colossus actually knocking back, trying to knock back the Cloaked Panther. The Cloaked Panther at that point was too far away and actually wasn't knocked back by that blast from the Soundblast Colossus. Really, really awesome creatures. I am loving them. And here again, a mixed herd of the bladeheads and the dire horses. Very often herbivores like these will form mixed herds. In Africa, for example, zebra and wildebeest will very often associate with one another. And in that case, it is because we are trying to fly against the wind, not doing a very good job there. There we go. It's a very, very strong wind blowing. It's a little wind channel there, or wind tunnel. Now, the reason why wildebeest and zebra associate with one another is because wildebeest have got very good hearing and smell, sense of smell, whereas zebras have got much better eyesight, and they will have worse hearing and smell than the wildebeest. So by being together, they actually complement one another's weaknesses. So where the wildebeest will not be able to see as well as a zebra, the zebra won't be able to hear and smell as well as the wildebeest. So they cover one another's weaknesses. And similarly here we have the bladeheads and the dire horses associating with one another. Most likely the dire horses also very good vision, and the bladeheads much better hearing and sense of smell. So they're able to then cover all their bases. But here in this deeper pool, we most likely would have quite a lot of fish gathering over here. This looks like a very good spawning area, or perhaps a nursery area. Actually, you know what? I think the nursery areas would be closer to the coast, where there are a lot more trees with their roots in the water, where there's nice places for the little ones, little fish, the fry, to actually survive in. But this shallow pool area would most likely be a very good feeding area for the fish, and also a lot of nice feeding area for things like the dire horses and the other herbivores in the area. We do also have some bladeheads in the back there. There were some arrow deers here as well a moment ago. There we go, there are some two of them over here as well. Lots of nutrients accumulating in this shallow area, because as water is flowing over there, it is still carrying a lot of sediments and a lot of nutrients. As the water flow slows down, as it reaches this pool area over here, water flow slows down, and as a result it starts depositing a lot of sediments. It also then, along with the sediments, will deposit a lot of nutrients. So this is a more sandy area. You can see the substrate here. There's a lot of sand and gravel here rather than big boulders. There's lots of sediment accumulating here, lots of nutrients accumulating here, and because it usually is sunny over here, there's lots of plant growth as well. And that is what all these herbivores are gathering for. It looks like we are reaching golden hour here. It seems that we also have the sun setting now, and we are currently here by the Ovation Falls. So we are going to quickly stop over again. Another little camp. There should be a Navi camp right up here. We're just going to spend the night once more. So it's actually taking quite a long time to travel down the river. But this campsite of the Navi is actually called Bird and Rest. So it's a perfect place for us to just quickly spend some time just to relax and recover our strength before we carry on. You can see the wind is picking up. There seems to be a thunderstorm approaching as well. So we really may need to get some shelter just for the night. In fact, there's a hurricane that is coming through this area, apparently. Okay, so we're just going to relax a bit here. Listen a bit to the drums. Not sure why this individual here is drumming while there's a hurricane going on, but, you know, to each their own. Alrighty, it is morning once more. It seems the hurricane has passed. We have made it through the night. It is now just cloudy. So here by Ovation Falls, where we currently are, just to our left-hand side here, to the east, there's a river that flows through the area where there used to be the celebration arches. And unfortunately, due to recent activities with the RDA, the celebration arches have also been destroyed. Now, some of them here to the tip, to the southern bit of the extent, they are still around. But unfortunately, as we go just quickly upstream a little bit, you can see the devastation that has been wrought upon this land by the RDA. Now, luckily, nature has recovered, which is great, but it is still a horrible sight. I mean, there is that horrible facility, that drill of the RDA, that has resulted in these arches actually collapsing due to some activity, underground activity that they have caused. But as a result of that, there used to be one little stream flowing through here. Now that little stream has been broken up into smaller streams. They're winding their way along the easiest path through this devastation. Now, as the river flows, what will happen is one stream will most likely find an easier route, or carve an easier route through the rock here, through the substrate, and more water will follow that path. Now, in fact, I think it's this stream on this side. This stream on this side seems to actually have a bit more water flowing in it. Now, both actually have very little, but I think this one has slightly more. As this one now has more and more water flowing through it, it is going to have, and there's some sparkle pods that are exploding as the dire horses are running through them. As more and more water flows through this stream over here, it is going to carve a deeper channel, and more water is going to flow through here, and it's going to carve a deeper path because there's more volume of water flowing more rapidly and forcing its way through the rocks here. So as a result, this will become the dominant stream, and that other one on the left there to the east is most likely going to start drying up, and over time this will be the new stream. And 1,000 years from now, nobody will even know that the RDA destroyed the arches, the celebration arches over here. They would think, because that facility up there will rust, and any Na'vi in the area will, unless the story is told from one generation to the next, Na'vi will simply believe that this is the way it was most likely. And nature recovers. Nature will, over time, recover, and there will be no trace of the RDA left in the upper plains or anywhere in the western frontier. But here, as we cross through the final celebration arch here, we are going to take one more dip. And let's actually head a little bit more down to the right hand side here, because to this side we have an amazing waterfall. And this is the Ovation Falls. This is the area where we head from the upper plains, the higher lying plains, down into the Kinglor forest. And the upper plains are there because it is higher altitude. It will most likely experience cooler temperatures in winter, possibly frost, killing a lot of trees, preventing them from actually establishing in that area. It also possibly will have less rain than places like the Clouded Forest and also the Kinglor Forest. So trees may actually battle to establish, and then if they do establish, they may get burnt. And very few, like the wind-bent trees that we have here and the crimson trees way in the background there, they actually are able to survive. They are specially adapted for life in the upper plains. But most plants, most large trees, won't be able to survive. But here, as we head into the Kinglor Forest, a real tropical rainforest environment. This is closer to the coast, and there's a lot of humid air coming in, being blown in from the ocean side. And as that humid air is actually forced up the mountainside here, and we can, if we just go a little bit back, may be able to see, usually there's actually quite a bit of wind blowing over in this area. There's a lot of strong winds blowing from the Kinglor Forest up, and air being forced up the mountainside. As that humid air, that warm humid air is actually pushed higher, it cools down, and as it cools down, it rains. So we are in a very, very high rainfall area here with the Kinglor Forest. So the Kinglor Forest, able to be in this area, and it's surrounded by cliff faces here because the humid air is being pushed up against the cliffs, forming rain. So this area will have a lot of rain. The Clouded Forest survives because there's a lot of fog, a lot of mist rolling through that area, basically condensing on the leaves of the trees, resulting in rain, or water dripping down to the soil, same effect as rain. But the upper plains here, because of the higher altitude and because of the high frequency of fire in the upper plains here, you won't have a lot of trees growing over here. Instead, you've got a typical grassland. But here we go, we are dipping down into the final biome. We are going down into the Kinglor Forest, into the rain forest here. And again, a lot of fog being sprayed up from this waterfall here, also fueling a lot of plant growth, lots of mosses, lots of ferns, lots and lots of plants growing over here. and most likely also a lot of little birds feeding on insects that are surviving in this area, that are thriving in this area. Now, as we are making our way now, we are in the lower reaches, or approaching the lower reaches of the river. This is the third part of the river. So we started out in the headwaters, also sometimes called the upper reaches. We then moved through the middle reaches in the upper plains, and now we are heading into the lower reaches. In this section of the river, in this reach of the river, the water is flowing much more slowly. There's a lot of volume here. As we are approaching the coast, we are also going to have a lot more sand settling out, so finer sediments accumulating, and we are going to have a change in the turbidity of the water as well. It is becoming a lot more turbid here. We can't really see the river bottom here. We can see a few plants floating on the surface here, but not a lot of plants growing deeper in the water, because there wouldn't be a lot of sunlight actually reaching the river bottom here. There's a lot of sediment being suspended in the water. The water is what we call turbid. On the left hand side here, you'll see one of our greatest triumphs. This was the laser ore processor Alpha, the big polluting facility over here. And it is no longer a big polluting facility, instead being reclaimed by nature, because we did take it out a few weeks ago. And it's already recovering nicely. But here, as we are moving around, we do have a few Tetrapteron flying around. These little birds, little pelican / flamingo-like birds. These are the Tetrapteron. Tetrapteron meaning four-winged, because as you can kind of see there, they have got 4 wings. And they, as I've said, are very similar to flamingos and pelicans. And they will be sitting along the water's edge here. Eventually they will roost again, and they will filter out food from the water, feeding on little crustaceans and smaller fish and all kinds of little things living in the water. We also have another flock that's moving on the left hand side here. You can see there. These appear to be not in breeding colors. If they are breeding, in fact, they would be a little bit more pinkish in color, trying to attract partners. These ones are just adults, and perhaps a few young ones mixed in there as well. We also have our third small antelope species here. We have the Hexapedes, a little family of them. Along the river here, they do appear to be breeding. We very often have breeding individuals, like the one on the right-hand side there. Oh, unfortunately, being attacked by viper wolves. But we do very often have the breeding individuals of the Hexapedes along the rivers here, most likely because there's lots of nice food for them. Now, of course, the viper wolves at the same time will also be hunting along these river courses, because there's lots of food for them. And as a result, you have a high concentration of viper wolves and other predators along the river courses here as well. Not the safest area to be, but a lot of animals will be here, like this Sturmbeest that is also moving along there. Now, Sturmbeest, like that one there, and all the other ones we are hopefully going to also see, they are very similar to wildebeest. And in fact, the name means storm beast, more of a German name. I do believe in Avatar they do call it Sturmbeest, but it's supposed to be a little bit more of a Sturmbeest. That's more of a, I think, a more accurate pronunciation. Now, here in the Kinglor forest, we have a lot of plants that are carnivorous, including these Beluga Flytraps. And they have this hood, this lid over the top there to prevent rain from ending up in their pitcher. So that funnel over there, that is the trap that they are trapping insects in, and insects will most likely crawl all over the inside of this Beluga Flytrap, and there will be slippery sections, and the insects will lose their grip and fall down into fluid that is lower down. In the fluid there, they will have their digestive enzymes that will actually break down the insects, and they are doing this in order to get nitrogen and phosphorus, because the soils here in the high rainfall areas with acidic soils, especially in bogs like this, there are not a lot of nutrients available. In the acidic soils, you very often will have nitrogen and phosphorus binding to things like aluminium and becoming unavailable to plants. So the Beluga Flytraps here, they are actually going to support themselves by catching insects and by feeding on the insects, and they get the nitrogen and phosphorus that way. But they don't want the digestive enzymes diluted by excess rain, so they have that little lid over the top. An amazing adaptation for an amazing plant to an amazing problem. But here, as we are flying through the Kinglor forest, we also have a lot of stratification in the forest, so a lot of layers in the forest. We've got our canopy over here, so the typical trees forming the canopy will have a lot of the shrubs and then some plants growing flat on the ground. We'll have vines creeping all along up to the canopy there. And we also will have some emergents, and we're going to see some emergent trees a little bit later on as we approach the delta area. And we are just going to try to soothe this one Sturmbeest. It is, unfortunately, does have a tracker in it. Let's see whether we can find it. It's right up ahead. Come on, Sturmbeest. Come on. That's it. We're just going to remove all the remnants of the RDA. You've got an RDA tracker in you. We don't want it in you. Let's just quickly remove that. You know, we are here to talk about the ecology of the river. But if we see an animal in pain, we are going to help them. And just let them be on their way. Oh, it's a lightning storm, so thankfully we weren't actually struck by lightning. But that Sturmbeest over there will now hopefully be able to survive and carry on. Now, okay, where is Temek? Temek, there we go, there you are. Alrighty. Now, in this area over here, in the slow-flowing areas, in the areas with more stagnant pools, we also have some water lily-like plants growing here. They won't be surviving in the fast-flowing waters. They need stagnant pools for them to survive in. And yeah, here we are. They are growing in this area. They don't really do very well deeper down in the water, so there are some leaves down there, but most of these plants that are growing in the water will have leaves floating on the water surface because the water is too turbid. It is not allowing a lot of sunlight through. And so they need the leaves on the surface of the water to actually get enough sunlight to photosynthesize. So there's a reason why in this area now we have a lot of floating leaved plants. Now, the rivers here in the Kinglor forest are a bit of a mess. Normally rivers don't split like this. In fact, they should be merging over here, but it seems that they are splitting. There's some kind of obstruction in the area there that has resulted in the river splitting in like 4. But we are just going to follow the threaded river further downstream. So to our right hand side, a little bit in there is another Thanator den that is a bit of a dangerous area to also head into. So we are going to stay away from there. We are sticking to the river. Of course, the Thanator there would most likely at some point come down to the water to drink. They are most likely a water-dependent species, and like lions, they will need to come down to drink. Alright, I seem to have slightly taken a wrong turn, or I didn't really read the topography right, because there's a waterfall there. We are going to just go to the left-hand side through the Blackwater basin again, and follow the braided river, rather than the threaded river. We are going to have the confluence again over there, and carry on a little bit. So let's go downstream. We are following it downstream, we're not going upstream. We're not going up there now. But again, more water accumulating here. This river is carrying a lot of water. And as we now have the flatter terrain, so the topography has changed. We are no longer in the steep-sided valleys of the clouded forest of the headwaters. We are no longer in the slightly undulating landscape of the upper plains of the middle reaches of the river. Instead, we are now in the very flat area, the Kinglor forest here. We are in the lower reaches of the river. So very, very slow-flowing water, very turbid, very rich in nutrients. So phytoplankton and so will do very, very well. Little algae will grow very well. And any plants that have got floating leaves will do extremely well in this section. Now, most plants that actually grow underwater... Oh, we were basically struck by lightning there, unfortunately. So most plants that actually grow underwater will do better in the middle reaches than in the lower reaches, because in the middle reaches there are some nutrients there. The water isn't flowing too fast either, but it is not as turbid, the water, as it is over here in the lower reaches. So a lot more sunlight will actually penetrate the water. Plants are able to photosynthesize quite nicely in the middle reaches. Again, I seem to have taken a wrong turn. Now, this Blackwater basin that we are in would most likely be referring to darker water. And black water is a term that we use to describe water that is stained a darker color, like very diluted Coke or Pepsi, that is due to the humic acids and the tannins in the vegetation around the river. So in South Africa, here in the southern part of South Africa, we have got the fynbos vegetation, and the vegetation there, the shrublands, the fynbos shrublands, very rich in tannins and humic acids in the leaves of the plants there. And as a result, as water percolates through the leaf litter, it accumulates this darker color. And the water that then flows out is actually a very, very dark color as well. As I've said, it looks like a diluted Pepsi or Coke. It actually has very low light penetration as well. You wouldn't have a lot of plants growing in that river, not even in the middle and lower reaches. Now, this section that we have actually taken now is a very, very strange area. It's in the lower lying areas, it's in the lower reaches, but we have got steep sided cliffs. Most likely this rock over here erodes very, very easily. It is a very soft rock, and as a result the river has actually carved a little path through here. This is not the main river. The main section of the river is actually flowing to the north. I do seem to have taken a slightly wrong turn over here, but we are part of the braided river, and we are just moving through this section of the Kinglor forest. Really a beautiful, beautiful landscape. Surprisingly, not a lot of animals along this section, but very, very dense vegetation. Now, as I was trying to say earlier, and then I got sidetracked, the vegetation that grows along a river, you very often will have species that are completely dependent on the river for them growing there. They wouldn't grow there if the river wasn't there. And the dapplefed that we've got growing along here with the orangish tipped leaves, they are part of those plants. They will only be growing next to rivers. And the vegetation that is dependent on the river and will be influenced by the river and will also have an influence on the river, that's what we call the riparian vegetation. Now, in the headwaters, I kind of forgot to mention it back there, the river is very much dependent on the vegetation growing next to it. So those trees, those cloud pines growing next to the river, they're going to drop a lot of leaves, a lot of needles into the river. That's going to form food for the shredders, little invertebrates, little insects in the water there that's actually breaking down those leaves. They are feeding mostly on that. Lower down in the river, you'll have other macroinvertebrates actually feeding on smaller fragments of leaves or on other nutrients that have accumulated in the water. And then here in the lower reaches where the water is so stagnant, you have very few leaves actually. Well, perhaps here in the Kinglor forest we actually will have quite a lot of leaves accumulating in the water as well, but usually by the time you get into the lower reaches, you'll have a lot of what we call collectors surviving. You will have filter feeders doing very, very well over here, feeding on phytoplankton and zooplankton, little small organisms in the water. You'll have things that like snails, and there we have breeding individuals of the great western tetrapterons. So let's actually just head on over to them. Come on, come back. Why are you going? You're going to start disappearing now soon. There we go. So there we are, bright pink color, the great western tetrapteron, breeding individuals of them. Really awesome to see. They're larger than the normal tetrapteron we saw earlier, and also brighter color during their breeding time. Most likely getting their pink color there from the carotene, from the pigments in the crustaceans that they are feeding on. Really an awesome creature. Shame this little great western tetrapteron, it is flying for its life. It is terrified. It is thinking, it is imagining that it is under attack, and it is flying away. Normally, of course, Ikran would definitely be feeding on them. They definitely would be feeding on the tetrapterons. Nice snack for them on their wing. But yeah, normally here in the lower reaches we would have things like filter feeders doing very, very well, because there would be a lot of things to feed on in the water column itself. Again, we've got a few hexapedes running over there, some adults as well, breeding individuals, because they do very well. They most likely are breeding along the river here. Now here, if we go to the right hand side, we actually go to the area where we started our life in the western frontier. So there is a nice little waterfall leading down there into Dyer's Bowl. And we also have another Ikran flying over here. And to the right hand side there, of course, this used to be the Resistance headquarters until the RDA attacked under the command of Mercer. And of course now it's just the ruins of the Resistance headquarters, the initial headquarters. And we started our life in the western frontier right over there somewhere to that side. We actually started our journey, and oh, how far we've come. Now we're just going to go back up the waterfall here, and then we are just going to go and carry on with our river flight. Almost called it a river cruise. It's not a river cruise, it's a river flight. So here we go. Weird that a bunch of water is actually flowing off into that area. Technically, at the rate that water is flowing in here, it should be flooding this entire Dyer's Bowl. I don't know how it is still carrying on. There should be an outflow, but we don't actually have an outflow. There's a little stream potentially merging with the river over here. But yeah, there's something happening here. A lot of water probably flowing into a deep chasm underground and actually not flooding Dyer's Bowl. But here we are in the lower reaches of the river, and we are in the Kinglor forest, and definitely one of my favorite areas to be in. I'll always be nostalgic about the Kinglor forest because we started here. This is the first biome we experienced. Now, of course, all along the river here, you'll have little headquarters as well. You'll have either Navi camps, or you'll have old RDA outposts here, little research outposts, like this little one on the right-hand side here. And it's a great idea, usually, to establish next to water, because you have this permanent water source, unless, of course, the RDA has polluted it. You'll have a very, very nice, clean water source. And you'll also have a lot of food available if you wanted to hunt some of the hexapedes here. I mean, look at this nice herd. I think we've got 6 of them in this little herd. Very, very fast moving, the little hexapedes. Very well adapted, very maneuverable as they are running and skirting through the forest here. Dense undergrowth. And notice here, this big tree here with its roots in the water here. This would be a perfect environment that could be a nursery for little fish, little fry. They could find shelter among the roots of some of these trees. This appears to be kind of like a mangrove tree growing here as well. A mangrove forest very often will be very good nurseries for little fish. So yeah, I love this environment over here. But again, we've got a Sturmbeest on the right hand side and some more Tetrapteron, Great Western Tetrapteron also flying over there. And now that we are moving into these areas with the slower flowing water, lots of vegetation establishing, and some awesome animals also surviving here. Oh look, we've got some viper wolves hunting on the left hand side. Great Western Tetrapteron again flying on the right. And one of my all-time favorite animals, the Hammerhead Titanotheres. A big adult bull over there. Some adults there. And look, we've got a Sturmbeest there as well. Also associated with the Hammerhead Titanotheres, because they are going to provide it with protection against predators. Oh, I love the Hammerhead Titanotheres. So, like the Soundblast Colossus, once they reach a certain size, nothing really would be able to terrorize them, would be able to take them down, except perhaps a Thanator. But there are only 2 areas in this biome where there are Thanators that they could potentially be threatened. As they are standing here, or lying down over here, they are very, very safe. Oh, there's a Sturmbeest rolling around in the mud. Of course, rolling around in the mud will help them get rid of parasites, will get them ticks off, and there are some shockingly big and violent ticks here, the wolf ticks that are on Pandora, and rolling around in the mud will most likely give them a nice little coating of mud and actually protect them against the wolf ticks. Here we go, one of the bigger ones also coming down, most likely coming to drink or to feed on the aquatic vegetation. They are, they have spotted something. They have spotted the viper wolves over there. Or they have spotted me. They may actually be trying to... I think they're trying to intimidate me. Okay, we're just going to go up. There we go, we're just going to... Don't bother, don't worry about us. Okay. Worry more about the viper wolves that are in the area. But the moment they realize that there is something here, like an Ikran that we are on, they had their crests erect like that. That is their way of illustrating that, listen, there's danger here. So, first of all, it tells other individuals in the group that, listen, there is danger. It could also be a very good way of attracting a partner, so it could be multifunctional, but in this case it was clearly there to show that, listen guys, there is something dangerous in the area. But it could also be an intimidation tactic. It makes them appear larger. So they appear larger to the predator, to us then, making us second guess whether we want to really target them. Now, they're not so much worried about me at the moment here. They are, however, worried about Temek, my Ikran, that I am on. Because they are most likely, especially as young ones, they would be taken down. The Hammerhead Titanotheres here would be taken down by Ikran, by fully grown Ikran. But in an effort to reduce predation by Ikran, they have got those shoulder pads, those armor on their shoulders, protecting them to some extent against aerial attacks. Not sure whether it would actually protect them against something like a storm glider, which is much larger than our Ikran. They most likely would still be able to take down the Hammerhead Titanotheres here. But you only really find them in the shallow bog-like environments in the Kinglor forest. They're not in the upper plains, and they are not in the clouded forest, most likely because there they would be outcompeted by other creatures. They're occurring in similar biome to the Bone Helm Rhino that we saw earlier, and the Bone Helm Rhino is most likely just a better competitor in the clouded forest for this niche. But here in the Kinglor forest, the Hammerhead Titanotheres is able to outcompete any other animal for their same niche. Basically, all animals on Earth and all plants also will have a niche, a role that they fulfill in the environment. And that includes what they feed on, how they feed on it, and where they feed on it. So it includes that feeding aspect as well. So if two animals occur in the same area and they have the same niche, well, there's going to be some competition there. And what will most likely happen is one group will outcompete the other one. Oh, it seems we are in a bit of a swarm of some kind of wasp-like creature there. Not sure what those were, but they do seem to swarm around there quite aggressively. So anyway, so two species can't occupy the same niche. This is called Gauss's principle of competitive exclusion. If they do have the same niche and then they occur in the same area, one is going to most likely outcompete the other. And the Hammerhead Titanotheres, like the one we've got over here, oh, look at the Helicoradian also popping in as the Hammerhead Titanotheres here has moved into the area. But they, along with the, and there they go, popping in, there we go, popping in again. Along with the Bone Helm Rhino we saw earlier, they have the same niche, so you can't have both in the same area. If you were to take a bunch of Hammerhead Titanotheres and dump them over in the clouded forest, they would most likely be outcompeted by the Bone Helm Rhinos. And likewise, if you take the Bone Helm Rhinos and bring them in here, they would most likely be outcompeted by the Hammerhead Titanotheres. And that's if the temperature and humidity and all those types of other aspects of the different biomes is actually, compatible with what these animals want. It may actually just be too cold up in the clouded forest also for the Hammerhead Titanotheres to survive. Maybe they need warmer temperatures like they have in the Kinglor forest here. But as I've mentioned, we have in the Kinglor forest, we've got good stratification or layers of vegetation forming, and notice the massive trees here. These are what we call emergents. They emerge above the canopy. They are really, really tall, great landmarks. Hello, who's moving down here? Hello, you guys also, two more Hammerhead Titanotheres splashing around in the water here. But the emergent trees here, they would most likely be nice breeding sites for things like the Ikran and for any other animal that may be nesting up in them. Safe, away from things like Thanators and most other predators. Now we are taking our last few dips here along the waterfalls here. We are very, very close to the coast. We are approaching the delta section of this river here. Now, not all rivers will have deltas, only really the big ones will have, like the Nile River, for example, will have a delta. And if you have got areas where there's a very large, flat, sandy environment, well, the sand is there because it is deposited by the river, but if you have a very large, flat area, the river could actually splay out in the last section of its lower reaches. And that is actually what is happening in this section over here. This is a typical delta. The river is spreading out over a very, very large area. We actually have to take, I think, this river over here. So this is part of a delta, and we're really going to see it in a little bit as we head down closer to the coast. Now, it doesn't seem like we have any more waterfalls from where we are to down here. And because this is the ocean, you will have salt water coming into this section here. This is now actually part of the estuary. And an estuarine environment is the environment where there's a mixing of salt water and fresh water. Fresh water from the river and salt water from the ocean. During the rainy season, this area would most likely be more fresh than salty, because there's going to be a lot more fresh water coming downstream from the upstream reaches. And then during the drier season, when there isn't a lot of water, a lot of rainfall in the catchment, then this river may not be flowing as strongly, and the salt water will have much more of an impact. Also, it most likely will have tides. Yes, we are on the moon of Pandora, and on Earth our tides are dictated by the moon's interaction with the Earth, but because, you know, we have got a massive planet somewhere, Polyphemus is somewhere, there we go, there is the planet over there. Because we have got these two celestial bodies, the moon of Pandora and the planet of Polyphemus over there, because we have got them interacting with one another, the gravitational pull will result in tides still happening. So there will be times when there will be high tide, and there will be times when there is a low tide over here. And during low tide, the river will have a stronger influence, so the water here becomes a little bit fresher, and during high tide, when there's more water rushing in from the ocean side, there will be saltier water in this area. We have one last predator, it seems, making its way along here. We've got some Scarab Crawlers. Very, very hard-shelled, one of the first creatures we interacted with or observed in our journey here on Pandora. And of course, like the Hammerhead Titanotheres, they've got a little crest that they can actually raise, except this is their like a shell on their tail, on their abdomen, on their back sides. And they are using this to communicate with one another, to move through denser areas, or in this case, actually, more likely, to intimidate me. And now they're all running away. It's like, no, run away, run away. This guy is not running away from us. We're not managing to successfully intimidate him. We must head away. We must go away. Again, a shallow bog-like environment that we have here. Lots of mangrove trees growing also in this area. You can see here to the right-hand side, to our left here as well. And right up ahead here also, nice mangrove tree. Lots of roots in the water. Lots of nice habitat for little fishies to survive in. Young ones to actually survive in. But here we are approaching the ocean. We have now flown all the way from the headwaters, from the source, well, the first point we could actually fly into it, all the way down to the coast. And now this is far more of a marine environment. And if we fly up, as the sun is setting on the western frontier, this whole area at the bottom here is part of the delta. Unfortunately, it is obviously now nighttime. But this whole area is the delta section, and the water is slowly but surely flowing into this vast ocean. So we're still in a calmish bay. We can't travel to the land there yet. We can't travel to there. But this is part of a vast expanse. So this is a calmer section, it seems, of the ocean. And who knows, maybe in future we'll be able to travel a little bit over there. But here, as we have reached the end of the journey, thank you so much everyone for joining me on our journey here. Really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a marvelous, marvelous time. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It really helps the channel to grow. And thank you once again everyone for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers. You guys are really awesome. If you've got any questions, do feel free to pop it down in the bottom there in the comments, and I will happily answer it. And this is Will signing out from an Ecologist Plays. Stay safe everybody, and thanks for joining me. Goodbye!